Ever bite into one of those bright red maraschino cherries and wonder how it got that almost unreal color?
Yeah. Well,
And
this is so vibrant.
yeah, it's almost too red to be real, right?
Yeah.
You might be looking at red dye number 3,
Mhm.
or erythrocene,
Okay.
as it's known in the science world.
Uh-huh.
It's been popular food coloring, like, forever.
Yeah, for ages.
But there's a growing debate about whether it's actually safe.
Right.
And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Hold
We're
on.
going to figure out what it is, where it's used, and why it's causing so much controversy.
It really is fascinating how something so common in our food can have such a complex story.
Yeah.
To even begin to understand the concerns,
Right.
we first have to understand what red dye number 3 actually is.
Okay, so break it down for us.
Sure.
What exactly are we putting in our bodies when we eat something with this bright red dye?
Imagine this. Red dye number 3 is actually derived from petroleum.
Wait, what?
Yes, the same stuff we use for gasoline. It's true. It's a synthetic dye, meaning it's made in a lab,
Okay.
not found naturally
Right.
in fruits or vegetables.
Interesting.
And here's another interesting tidbit. It has a surprisingly high amount of iodine, like what you find in salt.
Wait, so we're basically eating a little bit of gasoline and salt when we eat that cherry.
It is a bit surprising, right?
Yeah, that's not what I expected.
But the story gets even more interesting when we look at where else red dye number 3 pops up.
Oh,
We've talked about cherries, but it's also used in a bunch of other foods,
like what?
like sausage casings,
Okay.
baked goods,
Huh.
and even some candies.
Oh, wow.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Those bright red colors wouldn't be the same without it.
Okay, so it's in more than just cherries.
Right.
But I have to ask, if it's made from petroleum, shouldn't we be a little concerned about eating it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is where the recent FDA ban comes in.
Right. The FDA just banned red dye number 3 in food this year.
Yeah, just this year.
But didn't they ban it in other products a while ago?
You're absolutely right. Back in 1990,
Oh, wow.
the FDA banned red dye number 3 from cosmetics
Yeah.
and externally applied drugs
Interesting.
because of safety concerns.
Okay.
Which begs the question, if it wasn't considered safe for our skin back then,
Yeah.
why was it allowed in food for another 30 years?
Yeah, I know. It seems pretty backwards.
It does raise some eyebrows, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this gap between the two bans
Yeah.
really highlights the complex journey of understanding the effects of something like red dye number 3
Right.
on our bodies.
Makes sense.
There's often a lag between when we start using something and when we fully understand its potential impact.
So the FDA eventually caught up and realized this stuff might not be so great for us.
Precisely.
Okay.
And to understand why it took so long,
Uh-huh.
we need to delve into the research that finally pushed the FDA to take action.
Okay, so let's get into the science of it all.
What exactly did the research uncover about red dye number 3 that finally set off those alarm bells?
Well, multiple studies over the years have shown some pretty unsettling things,
Like what?
especially when it comes to the effect of red dye number 3 on animals. Researchers found that red dye number 3 caused thyroid tumors in rats.
Oh, wow.
Not just a few cases,
Right.
but a significant increase in these tumors compared to rats that weren't exposed to the dye.
Wow, thyroid tumors.
Yeah.
That's scary. And this was in rats eating red dye number 3, right?
Yes. And while rats aren't humans, their biological similarities mean these findings raise red flags for us too.
Oh.
It's not a direct one-to-one comparison,
Right.
but enough to warrant concern.
I see.
And beyond the tumor issue,
Oh.
red dye number 3 has also been shown to be genotoxic.
Genotoxic. That sounds serious.
It is, but I'm not sure what it means.
It means that red dye number 3 can actually damage DNA, which is like the instruction manual for our cells.
So like messing up the code that tells our bodies how to work. Exactly. When DNA gets damaged,
Yeah.
it can lead to mutations,
Uh-huh.
which can sometimes lead to cells growing out of control.
Right.
And that's a key factor in how cancer develops.
So it's not just about the thyroid tumors in rats.
Right.
It's about this potential for DNA damage that could have a much wider impact.
Precisely.
Got it.
And this is why the FDA ultimately labeled red dye number 3 as an animal carcinogen.
Oh, wow.
They officially recognized it as a cancer-causing substance, at least in animals.
Okay.
It took decades.
Right.
But they finally saw enough evidence to act.
It's mind-boggling that it was allowed in our food for so long, even after being banned from things we put on our bodies.
It does make you wonder about the priorities, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to red dye number 3.
Oh, no, there's more.
There's another layer of concern we need to unpack.
Okay.
This time, it's not about cancer,
Okay.
but something equally important.
Mm.
The potential for red dye number 3 to affect the nervous system.
Especially in children.
You mean it could affect brain development?
Exactly. While research is still ongoing,
Right.
there are studies suggesting a link between artificial food dyes like red dye number 3
Okay.
and behavioral issues,
Oh.
learning difficulties, and even hyperactivity in children.
Oh, wow. That's especially concerning since kids are often the biggest fans of brightly colored, artificially flavored foods.
Right.
It's like those colorful cereals and candies are directly targeting them.
You hit the nail on the head,
Yeah.
and it brings up a crucial point.
What's that?
Even if the FDA sets acceptable levels for certain additives,
Okay.
there's still much we don't know about long-term effects.
So even if something is technically allowed, it doesn't mean it's a good idea to eat it.
That's a great takeaway.
Okay.
We need to be critical thinkers when it comes to our food choices.
Right.
And sometimes that means going beyond what regulations tell us.
So we've got potential cancer risks,
Right.
possible brain development issues, and a history of delayed action by the FDA. I'm starting to wonder why red dye no 3 was ever used in the first place.
It's a fair question, and there's a simple answer.
What is it?
It's cheap and effective.
You mean it's a cost-saving measure for food companies?
Think about it.
Yeah.
Red dye no 3 is a very stable dye.
Okay.
It doesn't break down easily and
Right.
creates that bright,
Yeah.
eye-catching red that pops on shelves.
Right.
It makes those maraschino cherries look irresistible and those candies even more tempting.
Yeah.
It's all about marketing and making food look appealing.
So for years, the focus was on aesthetics and taste,
Yeah.
even if it meant using ingredients with questionable long-term effects.
That seems to be the case.
Hmm.
But the good news is that things are shifting.
Oh, good.
Consumer awareness about artificial food dyes like red dye no 3 is growing.
Okay.
People are demanding natural, healthier alternatives.
So what does this shift look like in the food industry? Are companies actually listening? Are companies actually listening to these consumer concerns about red dye number 3?
They are starting to.
That's good.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more companies, even
Right.
here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
phasing out artificial dyes like red dye number 3
Right.
and replacing them with natural colorings.
Oh, interesting.
Colors derived from fruits and vegetables
Oh,
and other plant-based sources.
So there's hope for a future where our food is both vibrant and safe.
Absolutely. And this transition is happening even faster in Europe.
Really? Why is that?
Well, they've had stricter regulations on food additives for much longer.
I see.
European agencies tend to take a more cautious approach.
Okay.
If there's even a hint of potential harm,
Yeah.
they're more likely to restrict or ban an ingredient, even if it hasn't been definitively proven unsafe.
So they'd rather be safe than sorry when it comes to protecting people's health.
Exactly.
They got it.
This difference in approach has led to some interesting situations
Like,
where the same food product might contain red dye number 3 here in the U.S.,
okay.
but be made with natural colorings in Europe.
Wait, so the same company is using different ingredients depending on where they're selling the product.
Yep.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
It highlights how much power consumers have
Yeah.
when people demand safer, healthier options.
Right.
Companies have to listen.
It's like voting with your dollars.
Exactly.
Well, this has been really eye-opening.
Yeah.
All this talk about red dye number 3,
Uh-huh.
the research, the FDA ban.
Right.
It's all part of a bigger conversation about what we're putting into our bodies.
You got it.
And it's a reminder to always be curious and question what's in our food.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes what seems harmless on the surface might have hidden consequences.
Yeah, here's something to ponder.
Okay.
If red dye number 3 was deemed unsafe for external use decades ago,
Yeah.
should it ever have been allowed in our food in the first place?
Right.
And what other seemingly harmless ingredients might be lurking in our pantries with potentially harmful effects?
It's a thought-provoking question,
It is.
and one that we hope will inspire you to continue this exploration.
Absolutely.
Keep learning, keep asking questions,
Yeah.
and keep advocating for your health and the health of your loved ones.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.